and every moment we have shared is more than I could ask. Only God could love you more, for he gave me this love I have for you. What a blessing to know he's your Lord. Only God could love you more than I do. Only God could love you more than I do.
Ken, do you take this woman to be your lawful wedded wife? Do you promise to love and cherish her in sickness and in health, whether you be rich or poor, whether it shall be for better or worse, as long as you both shall live? Lori, do you take this man to be your lawful wedded husband? Do you promise to love and cherish him in sickness and in health, whether you be rich or poor, whether it shall be for better or worse, as long as you both shall live? Repeat after me. I, Ken, take thee, Lori,
I, Ken, take thee, Lori,
to be my wedded wife,
to be my wedded wife,
for better, for worse,
for better, for worse,
for richer, for poorer,
for richer, for poorer,
in sickness and in health,
in sickness and in health,
to love and to cherish,
to love and to cherish,
till death do us part.
till death do us part.
I, Lori, take thee, Ken,
I, Lori, take thee, Ken,
to be my wedded husband,
to be my wedded husband,
for better, for worse,
for better, for worse,
for richer or poorer,
for richer or poorer,
in sickness and in health,
in sickness and in health,
to love and to cherish,
to love and to cherish,
till death do us part.
till death do us part.
So a little water under the bridge since then. How many of you guys like the mustache? Come on. Yeah. All right. Yeah, 2 of you. Yeah. So we were kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Man, I don't know why I did that to you.
Is
but
this the one, is this the original where at the end of the wedding, remember Young and the Restless? I don't know if it's still on.
No, they didn't. Yeah, that wasn't on there.
Is it? Okay.
That was another one.
That was another one.
She taped over our wedding tape.
No, it's the very end, and then the music starts for Young and the Restless. Didn't tape over it, it's just in succession to it.
That's not the way I remember it, but
That's,
you know.
that's the way it was.
So, couple of things as we get started. First of all, you guys know this, but I talk in front of people all the time. This is not kind of your comfort zone, and so we appreciate you being willing to do this. I have had to make a promise of purchasing all kinds of bracelets to get Lori to do this, but I knew that you guys, I think you guys would appreciate hearing from her, and I don't know that we'll get through all of it. Boy, after the first service, I thought there's so many other things that we had listed to talk about. We may do this again. We'll see how this all plays out. If I get in trouble, we may not do this again. So
We'll see.
But anyway, we've been in a series of messages on things everybody needs to know, and we did one a few weeks ago about things everybody needs to know about marriage. And I thought that it would be good to have this conversation. This is really, it's not a Bible teaching this morning. Normally we do that, so don't anybody please be offended by that. But this is really illustrative of what the Bible teaches related to marriage. See, it's one thing for us to say you need to have a strong and godly, Christ-honoring marriage, but it's another thing for us to be able to talk about how do we actually get to that point. So, the Bible says in Genesis chapter 2, you guys remember, the Lord God said, "It is not good that man should be alone. I will make him a helper fit for him." And we know that God ended up creating woman, gave to man, so that his life in that sense would be his completer and his helper. And so what we want to talk about today really is just an illustration of what God did for those of you that God calls to actually become married. He gives you your spouse to be a helper, to be a completer. So with all of that said, Lori, why don't you just talk a little bit about how we met, sort of how how that came about, so they won't think that it was in a biker bar in San Antonio.
No, I quit that job, thankfully.
Right, yeah, I'm glad. It's good.
We met in church back in 1987. Ken was called to my home church in Union, Missouri, and back then he was minister of music and youth, and my mom was his piano accompanist. So I hadn't really been going to church, or I was going to another church at the time, I'm not really sure. And my mom said, Laura, you should come to church. We have this new minister of music, and he's cute. You should come.
It's the mustache. It's the mustache.
So, anywho, so I went to church, and yeah, he was cute, but then.
It's in the past tense.
But,
Not
okay.
sure how I feel about that.
Okay, you have to understand, ministry was not on my radar. I never wanted to marry a minister. How boring.
I know.
You know, you just read the Bible all the time, you never do anything fun. So I was not prepared.
I'm not sure how we.
Like you.
Yeah, I'm
Never fall in love
exactly.
with you.
Exactly. I'm not sure how we got to all that, but anyway. So now I'm
Side
boring and do it.
Side note.
Side note, exactly. Okay. So when we got married, now we had a long courtship. We started, our first date was in March of 1988. Yes?
Do you remember where we went?
I do.
For dinner?
I do. Rich and Charlie's,
Rich and Charlie's
in St. Louis.
And I had
Spaghetti?
and I had braces.
Needless to say, we did not kiss goodnight that
You
night.
kissed my cheek.
I did. I was a gentleman.
was sweet.
That's right. That's
That
right.
was sweet.
I was what? Sweet?
Did I say that?
You did. So we had a not so long courtship. We started dating in March and we were married in September. So don't try this at home, okay? So 6 months total, and that's been 28 years ago. And we have said through the years, changing the years obviously, but we've said, for example, this year, we've been married 28 years, and they have been 27 of the happiest years of our life. Because 1 year was not so good.
That first year was rough.
It was really rough. We really didn't have, outside of our faith in Christ, we didn't have the tools or the foundation to be able to maneuver through what it was like to become husband and wife. And this is one of the reasons why I think premarital counseling, especially from a Christian perspective, is vitally important. We had, and I'm not faulting anybody for that, it's just the way it was done. We had one premarital counseling session and one session to plan the wedding. And the only question I remember being asked was, what do you plan, or where do you plan to be in 5 years? And I didn't know where I was going to be in 5 minutes, much less 5 years. And so that really didn't do a whole lot to propel us toward a healthy relationship. So the first year was pretty rough. And the reason we bring that up is not to air our dirty laundry or anything like that, but to let you know, if you're here this morning and you say, man, we're struggling, or maybe you've been there and done that, or maybe somebody in your family is, it can get better. And I'll tell you I'll just be honest with you guys, how difficult it was. And there is no joke forthcoming when I say this, but it was so bad. I was ordained as a minister at the age of 19, and within that first year of marriage, I contacted another denomination to find out whether or not they would be open to taking a divorced minister into their ranks. It was that challenging. But we made it.
We made it.
And not only did we make it, but we've made it well.
Yes.
It's the best thing going for me anyway. Probably not for you, but for me. So, said all that to say, if you're struggling, don't give up. Please don't give up. There can be greater days, there can be victory, there can be just so many good things that come with a good marriage relationship. So let's talk about maybe the first year and some other things related to adjustments. Mm-hmm. What were some adjustments that we and you had to make during that first year or so?
So I was 19 when we started dating. So at the ripe age of 20, we got married. So I went from living with mom and dad, where I was a princess. I never cooked, I didn't do laundry, I didn't clean.
Kind of like now. No, just kidding. That was just too easy. That was a softball. So
Was that supposed to be funny?
No, I'm sorry.
So, back to me.
Back to you, princess.
So I didn't do, I didn't do anything. So I had it made. Then we get married, and like, I've got to clean. I've got to, and that wasn't a whole lot of fun. And also, the only bill I had was my car payment. So I would pay my car payment, and the rest of the money was for Lori. And so I could shop and buy clothes or bracelets, go out to eat. It was all about me. And then when we get married, we have bills. And so that was an adjustment. And then being married to a minister was an adjustment. I had no idea, I don't know if there's a right way or a wrong way to be a pastor's wife, but I had no idea. So I was fumbling quite often. It was just hard.
And part of that, and everybody has kind of their own, storyline in terms of marriage. But for us, because of the role that I played, we were in a good-sized church where I was an associate pastor doing music and youth ministries at that time. And we lived in really a fishbowl. I mean, we still do, but we've gotten used to that through the years. But back then, it was really different. I mean, people just knew everything about us, and it was kind of creepy, to be honest with you. But anyway, that was one of the challenges, I think. Yeah. So I think that was probably hard. Other adjustments? Anything you can think of?
Can't think of any.
Okay. When you think about going back in time, what were some things that you wish you would have known, like at 20 or even 22, 23, about life and then, maybe marriage in particular?
Not to make such a big deal about little petty things. Looking back, it's like, that wasn't a big deal at all. It wasn't a big issue. I made things into an issue that weren't an issue. So I wish I would have known it or realized it. Not everything has to be perfect in your house. I mean, come over to my house now, you'll see I've adjusted to that one quite well. It's like, if you have people over and your house isn't perfect and it's okay. They don't care if you have dust bunnies, I hope.
We have dust bunnies?
We have Maggie the Great Pyrenees, so we
Maggie
have
the Great.
dust bunnies.
Yeah, exactly.
So I guess, don't sweat the small stuff. It's not a big deal.
Okay, that's good. Related to that, what would have been some of the biggest surprises? Like when you think back early on, what were some big surprises about getting married?
This whole commitment thing. Before, when you date and you have an argument, it's like, fine, I'm not going out with you anymore. And you never have to see him or talk to him. He was still there.
We can change that. I'm just saying. I mean, it can.
It's like, then you work through your issue, whatever it was at the time. In that first year, there was like the day or the hour, whatever it was we were battling about.
Oh yeah.
But it's like, he's not going anywhere. You're forced. The whole commitment thing makes you stay and deal with the issue.
Right. And we talk about that in premarital counseling. I tell couples all the time. And it sounds kind of non-romantic, but it really is true. Love comes down to really two things. It's a decision and it's a commitment. Like I told you guys a few weeks ago, if you say, I just fall in love, well, then people say, I fall out of love. Well, that's not right. You don't fall out of love. Somebody makes a choice to bail. And there were times that we, off and on had considered that. We had, the first year was really tough, and then probably, was it about year 12 or so, things got to be challenging. And then for us too, it was, and I say this to, not to make it look worse for us, but it was difficult because, who am I going to go to in the church to talk about my marriage issues? Who is she going to talk to talk? What lady in the church is she going to go to and say, let me tell you about what my husband did? The one that preached and you really like?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fun. If you
okay, let's go on.
You get into an argument or whatever, and then it happens to be either a Saturday night or a Sunday morning, and then you have to go to church and put on your happy face.
Right. That's why we don't talk on Saturdays.
And then it's like it never fails when I might be a little off with him, put off about something. That rarely happens, though. It's like everybody, oh, your husband's so wonderful. Then I'm like, yeah, he's a dandy, all right.
Yeah.
But I don't know, what was the question? I kinda
It doesn't
got
matter.
sidetracked.
It's,
I was going to say something nice.
sure you were.
A surprise.
Okay,
Surprise about marriage.
Surprise about marriage, that I was so nice.
You were a commitment and you're still there.
Yeah, that's right.
That it has turned out to be as good as what it is. And not just, I don't mean that, but it's like, it is good. It's like, it's great. Ken is my best friend. There's no one I would rather spend time with than Ken. He's just, you're a fun guy. I think I'll keep you.
Well, it's good because I got nowhere else to go at this point. So every couple, just like every individual, you have ups and downs emotionally and spiritually. People sometimes, and I know you guys don't feel this way, but there are a lot of churches that think, you're a pastor, a pastor's wife, like life's always good, no big challenges. We live in the exact same world you guys live in. And we have the same kinds of challenges that you guys have, and we have to figure out how to maneuver through those things. So when we think about ups and downs and those kinds of challenges, how have you dealt with your ups and downs emotionally, spiritually, and then how have you in turn dealt with mine when I've been up or down?
When I get down or if I'm angry or whatever, I tend to withdraw. And so I will try to hide within myself, I guess. Ken has been good because he encourages me to talk about whatever it is that's bothering me. What's the verse in Romans 8:28 about when you don't know how to pray, the Holy Spirit?
That's 8:20, because I'm going to be 8:28 is all things work together, but you're talking about the
Is
one.
it 8:26?
You're talking about the one that the Holy Spirit intercedes on behalf with groanings that can't be uttered.
Right,
Yeah.
and so there was a period of time where I just didn't know how to pray. It's like I was praying, but I felt like, God, he's not hearing me. So I would just say, okay, God, this happened today. I don't know. I got nothing. And so that has been that was my verse for a period of time. But just talking, Ken was always there and would encourage me to talk about whatever it is. And I try to, I think we read each other. If you've been together over a period of time, you can learn to read each other. There are times I don't want to talk. I'll say, this happened, and this happened at work. And it's like, I don't want to talk about it. And he's like, okay.
But I learned that the hard way.
Yeah.
Because I used to, and guys, you'll appreciate this, typical guy, I was a fixer. Because you would say, well, here's what happened. I said, well, here's what you need to do. Which was not the right thing to say, just for the record. And so I learned in time that she doesn't want me to fix it. She just wants to be heard.
Say, you're right.
Queen, you're right.
You're right.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. And the other piece to that is you not only had to deal with your ups and downs, but sort of being, sort of public people, you've had to deal with my ups and downs. And I don't have the luxury of standing up on Sunday morning and saying, I really don't feel like doing this today, guys, so I'm going to run on home. I can't. Yeah. I mean, I could do that like once probably, and that'd be it. But you had to deal with that, and we went through, and you guys know a lot of the story because I've talked about it in as much as I feel like I can without ending up on the floor in the fetal position sucking my thumb. But some difficulties in another state, in a situation that we were in, and you had to watch me day after day get up and try to lead the charge, first in a setting that I didn't feel like I could lead. And then when we planted the church to go from X number of dollars that we knew we were going to have weekly to not knowing what next week was going to bring.
Yeah.
So how did you deal with that, trying to watch me and help me through? Because that was a tremendous help.
Well, I feel, first of all, I feel guilt for that whole
We're not in counseling
years.
now. You can move past that part. So
Because this might be another topic we'll deal with later. But anyway, I really encouraged Ken to move to Fort Smith. And then it didn't work out. And then so I felt guilty. So really it's like, well, I guess I'll pray. Nothing else is working. I didn't, that last resort, pray. Way to go, Lori. So is it best just to, and just trying to read you and see, what can I do? Or is it best just to step back and just kind of and
Yeah.
leave alone.
And sometimes, and we've talked about this at length too, everybody deals with things differently, but it used to be when I'd come in from work, how was your day? And you would want me to talk
I went
about
minute by minute.
Yeah.
What happened?
And when I'd come in from work, just like a lot of you guys, it's sort of like I want to leave it there, especially if it's been a hassle, if there's been something challenging going on. It's like, I don't want to talk about it. I want to go sit in my recliner, you know what I mean, whatever. And so we've learned through the years where now if I've had a bad day or whatever, I'll come in and I'll say something like, we're fine, it's all okay. I just don't want to talk about anything that happened today.
Yeah.
And that way it diffuses what could otherwise be a challenging situation, because if I come in and she thinks I'm loaded for bear, I'm not loaded for bear against her. I've just had a bad day.
Or I can tell, by his
Right.
facial expression, and then I'm like, surely I couldn't have done anything.
No, of course not.
Not me.
Never.
So yeah, so that does help. Say, okay, I'm kind of had a rough day, and I don't really feel like talking about it right now.
Yeah.
So that helps.
Yeah. How have you dealt with, without sharing too many of them, like my faults?
Do you have it?
What was that?
Do you have it?
Yes, I do. How have you dealt with that? Because people have the idea when they get married that whatever things about this other person that need to change, I'll change them.
Yeah. Doesn't work that way.
Doesn't work
does
that
it?
way. So there are things that I'm sure, even to this day, you go, I wish he wouldn't do that, or I wish he wouldn't say that. I'm sure that happens once every 10 years or so.
Is it really that big of a deal?
Right?
I mean, looking.
Yeah.
Whereas I think when we were first married, I would voice my,
Yeah.
I don't know what word, displeasure maybe, or it's like, now it's not that I'm scared to, but it's like, I think I try to choose my battles. Is what he said or what he's doing, I mean, it might get on my nerves, I may not like it, but is it worth the argument or the silence for 2 or 3 hours? Is it really worth it for me just to say, I don't know. So I try, I guess, what I'm trying to say is I try to pick my battles. Sometimes I do a better job than others, but that's
Yeah.
what I try to do.
I think the key with that is helping everybody to understand people can't control other people.
No.
And you married me as is.
Right.
And I married you as is. And whatever changes we've made through the years, we've made those changes together. But we determined that even when we disagreed on things, we pick it up and we move on.
Right.
One of the things in the early service, I think everybody got a kick out of this when I said, are there things I've ever preached or done or said, or even decisions I've made as a pastor that you may have disagreed with? And the answer to that is?
Yes.
Yeah. And so my point in bringing that up is not so that you think there's division in the Parker household, but a lot of people have the idea that to be a biblical spiritual leader in your home is like this tight-fisted, iron hand kind of thing, and I'm not like that. And I think,
No, you're not.
Okay.
So a couple of weeks ago, on a Saturday morning, I'm having coffee, and I'm thinking I need to clean the house. I probably should do some laundry. I probably should do something. And next thing, and I didn't say anything, Parker cleans the bathroom for me. That was huge.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful
Huge.
thing.
Yeah, that's right.
It was just nice. It's like I didn't have to tell him that you scored brownie points.
Big time.
You
There
did.
you go. Okay.
Did that go along with anything?
I
Did just
don't
kind
know.
of
You're
throw that
fine.
out there?
You're fine. So when we think about, and there's some of this I want to come back to later, but in terms of church life, because we've lived in the fishbowl and all that, and it's a little different for us because this is our church family, and yet we serve our church family. I'm the leader in our church family, and so you can understand the dynamics are a little bit different than what they are for most of you guys. What's been the toughest thing about like life in the church? Because we know, and we're going to talk about this later, the church has been good to us.
The
I mean,
church
the
is
church
wonderful.
universal, and this church in particular.
Yeah, I can't imagine life without you guys, without my church family. As far as a difficulty or thing that's the hardest is when people get bent out of shape or dissatisfied with kin. And it's like, I know not everybody's going to agree with kin all the time, and that's okay. I think it just boils down on how you deal with it. It's like, or you come in and talk to him, that would be great, but don't, what's hurtful to me, as I think with everybody, you don't want anybody talking about your husband. You can talk about him all you want, but you don't want anybody else saying anything negative about him. So that's hard, and depending on what it is, and it's like, I honestly, can we talk? I want to scratch their eyes out. Is that mean? Should I not have said that?
I don't think that's the spirit of Jesus. But
that's honest, that's how I feel.
I get where you're coming from,
Yeah.
yeah. And we've had some hard things with, you know, in particular in one church that we served, because of some decisions and then because of some other things, people that we had double dated with and gone places with as friends and all, and they left.
That kind of went out of my mind. Thanks for
Sure.
bringing that one up. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's like people that we thought were our friends. You know, the ladies and I, we'd go out to lunch or we'd go shopping. They were in our home, we were in their home, and then for whatever reason they get bent out of shape and they leave.
Right.
And it's hurtful. And I'm sure you guys have experienced it too with, you know, friends in church, and you know, they leave and it's like, oh, there's
Sure.
a void.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah.
And we're not immune from that kind of
No.
pain. A lot of people might think that might be the case. We talked a little bit in early service. I'm trying to keep these on the same track because I really feel like we need to come back and do this again, maybe in a few weeks. I don't know, because we've not even scratched the surface on most of the stuff that sounds a lot more spiritual probably than what we're doing today. But one of the challenges that we had to do with in-laws. And now, just for the record, you know, my mom, now in heaven, liked Lori more than she liked me. And she really liked me, so, you know, so that tells you something. But part of it was being in the church where I became the pastor of my father-in-law, my mother-in-law, my sister-in-law, my brother-in-law, and all their kids, and then my parents moved to town. So not only am I the son-in-law,
One sister did too.
and then my one sister did as well. And so, and I made a couple of decisions in transitioning the church through some things that not everybody agreed with. And it became really, really difficult, which ultimately ended up being one of the reasons where we kind of looked at each other and said, if we're going to survive this, we need to do something different. We need to make a transition somewhere. How did we ultimately get through that? Because that was hard.
It's that whole commitment thing again.
Yeah, that's right. There it is.
Where it would have been so much easier just to bail. You know, it's like, I can't do this. And I don't want to do it. There were,
Right.
you know, which I'm sure you felt it. It's like, I don't want to do this anymore. So I think we just, you know, through a lot of the communication thing, and just, I guess
Yeah.
that's how we did it.
Well, and then I think probably working hard to not blame each other
Right.
for things that were external circumstances that were infringing on our relationship. It was hard, but we got through it. And the good part, and this is another one of those things that I want to say to you guys that could be helpful, not only did we get through that, but we ended up, when it's all said and done, I have a great relationship with my in-laws. I've in some ways spent more time with my father-in-law than I have my dad because of his ability to travel and that sort of thing. And you ended up getting along great with my parents. And so anyway, but it wasn't always easy,
Right.
which is one of the big things that we talk about with couples getting married. One of the areas that's so important is the areas of in-laws and relationships along those lines. So we're about out of time, so let me just kind of wrap up this piece and say, there's so many things I want to talk about. I want to talk about mentors for women in particular and for young couples. I want to talk about heartaches in marriage. I want to talk about advice. If you think back on when you were 20 years old, if you could have been given some advice, or if now you could give some advice to a 20-year-old bride or a young lady, what do you think that would be?
Find a church. I think obviously our church is the best. So I would say find a church, a godly, Bible-based church, and get involved in a small group. And then just don't sweat, like I said earlier, don't sweat the small things that are really insignificant. And looking back, it's like, try not to make a big deal out of things that really shouldn't be made a big deal out of.
Yeah. And part of that's just maturity.
Oh, yeah.
And then part of that is, I'm sure, Christian maturity for both of us. But had we not made the commitment first and foremost to Jesus,
Right.
we would not have been able to fulfill our commitment to each other.
And make time for, whatever he likes. If there's a certain meal that he likes, make it for him. It's a little thing you can do. If
If there are
makes you
certain
happy,
bracelets that she likes,
buy them for me.
buy them.
I have 4
Exactly.
on today.
Just there you go.
I think just being considerate of each other. And,
Yeah.
It's like, you never talk down to me or talk about me in a negative way that I know of. But it's like, I think just be considerate of each other. And, I try not to.
Like husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church. Do what you can to demonstrate your love. We've got a million other things to talk about, but we're out of time. 28 years, and you guys know, like a friend of mine said the other day, said, I was looking at your Facebook post. He goes, man, your wife is really pretty. You really outkicked your coverage. And I said, I get that. 28 years, if knowing, the whole story, would you do it again?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's been a great ride.
Yeah, and that's what we both said. I want you guys to know, and it's like, and I said at the beginning, we're not perfect, and we sure don't have all the answers, but we want to share what little piece of our life that might be helpful to you, and I think it's helpful for them to hear from you, because bless their hearts, they have to listen to me all the time. But you guys have had, and I trust will have, greater pastors along the way, but I'm going to demonstrate my bias in saying I don't think the church will ever have a better first lady. So thanks for all that you do. So we've talked about all of this, and I don't want to make a transition that's artificial, but here's the thing. Maybe this morning as we've talked about this, you said, man, you guys have talked about Jesus some, and he's not been a part of my life or not a part of our relationship together. If you want somebody to talk with you about how you can know Jesus, I'm going to be here at the front and would love to do that in just a minute when we start to sing. Or if you want to come and pray, or you want somebody to pray for you, I would encourage you to do that, and we'd love to do that. Or maybe you feel like you want to be a part of this church because we're trying to value Christ-centered, Jesus-honoring marriages. I don't know how God may have spoken to you through this little conversation that we've had, but I trust that He has. Maybe you've learned something or been encouraged in some way.